Case study number 1, diabetes brought by sexual promiscuity, based on a presentation by Dr.彭鑫, PhD from Beijing Chinese Medicine University, at the second Entrepreneur Forum held at Qingdao, China, May 2009. Good morning, fellow leaders, distinguished guests, elders, and teachers. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Peng Xin, Peng as in the Peng character of General Peng Du Huai, while Qin is written with 3 gold Chinese characters. I graduated with a PhD from Beijing Chinese Medicine University. After my graduation, I went to the China Academy of Traditional Chinese Medicine to engage in TCM theory and clinical research. 5 years have passed since I started studying traditional Chinese culture, and I feel that traditional Chinese culture and the teachings of the saints and sages are immensely valuable for both our heart and body. Next, I will give a presentation on my report. My lecture is entitled, The Root Cause of a Damaged Body, Moral Decay, and the Shortening of Life Expectancy. Currently, a very popular topic in our society is health. The word health refers to maintaining one's mind and body in a healthy state. Conversely, if you look at the current situation in our society, what do we see? We see the opposite. As our country becomes more prosperous and as people's material life improves, the quality of people's health has declined. The prevalence of stroke, diabetes, cancer, and many other diseases that are difficult to cure have increased year by year. The ancients had a saying, if outcomes are unsatisfactory, reflect upon oneself. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, we bear 2 responsibilities. The first one is the treatment of diseases, and the second is to cultivate and maintain good health. Thus, if there are problems with people's health, we are responsible. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, I would hereby like to apologize to everyone. We did a poor job. As I mentioned previously, even though people's lifestyles and material lives have improved, their bodies are in a state of decline. Numerous diseases that are unable to be resolved by many hospitals have arisen, and these ailments accompany these people throughout their lives. There is a very important lesson in all of this, and we can trace the warning given by the ancient physicians who cautioned us against the seriousness of bodily damage brought by indiscreet sexual practices. In our present society, together with the increasing acceptance of Western values we see in the land of China, a precious country with 5,000 years of civilization, an emergence of a very chaotic phenomenon, which is the proliferation of sex and pornography. What phenomenon I am referring to? When we walk on the streets and look at billboards, many billboards are filled with explicit pictures that arouse sexual desires. When we walk to the newsstand, we notice that over 50% of newspapers and magazine covers show actresses and celebrities wearing skimpy outfits, causing people to think unwholesome thoughts and ideas. Then, we turn on the computer and connect to the internet. We will find uncountable links to porn websites. We can even find such pornographic links on many well-known international and domestic websites. Next, when we turn on the television, it is very common to find the plots of many TV drama series containing mistresses and extramarital affairs.
非常普遍。一方面，这些泛滥的这种性的思想。
On the one hand, the proliferation of these ideas pollutes the thoughts of people, and on the other hand, it affects people's body and mind, a double setback indeed. The ancients believed that unchecked sexual desire, which they used the analogy Shang Huo, ministerial fire, to describe it, is actually sexual impulsiveness. The Shang is an analogy of the prime minister. According to Chinese medical theory, two kinds of fire exist in the body. One of them is known as Junhuo, sovereign fire. The other one is known as ministerial fire. Jun refers to a sovereign, a monarch, which means that the sovereign should occupy a rightful place as the leader, while the prime minister's role is to assist the sovereign, hence the sexual impulsiveness and sexual promiscuity of human, as explained in the ancient Chinese medical text, is the result caused by the reckless behavior of the ministerial fire, analogous to a prime minister who has stepped far beyond the scope of his duties. When a ministerial fire behaves recklessly, it will wear off the sexual fluid in the human body, leading to numerous diseases. In my fieldwork as a Chinese medicine researcher, I found out that the following factors that can cause harm to our body I will explain to you one by one. Firstly, there is a disease that has become prevalent in our society. Every year, the number keeps rising and increasingly trending towards a younger population. What is this disease? Diabetes. Many people call diabetes a rich man's disease. Why it is so? In ancient times, or as recent as before the 60s and 70s in China, the incident rates of this disease were not high. Then as China reformed and as the material life of people improved, the incidence rate of this disease increased. Next, I am going to report why messy sexual relationships between men and women could lead to an increasing incidence of diabetes. We are all familiar with the concept of overeating, and that an improper diet can lead to diabetes. This concept, according to TCM theory, is called zhongxiao, attrition of the middle part. Diabetes also goes by the name xiaoqi, attrition of thirst, jiao meaning attrition, qi meaning thirst. The ancients divided diabetes into three categories: shangxiao, attrition of the upper part, zhongxiao, attrition of the middle part, and jiaxiao, attrition of the lower part. Zhongxiao refers to any disease related to the spleen and stomach, the middle burner, caused by unfettered eating and drinking. A condition, if not remedied in time, will lead to diabetes. Next is jiaxiao, which refers to diabetes caused by unrestrained sexual activities and lust. This type of diabetes is particularly common in today's clinics. Everybody, please take note. The cause behind the high incidence of this type of diabetes is not solely due to an improper diet. Currently, there is a rising incidence of diabetes caused by excessive sexual activities. This type of diabetes has a unique characteristic, which I will now describe. The characteristic is a feeling coolness in one's lower extremities. Everybody, please remember that the symptom of aging will start from the legs. During the Qing dynasty, there was a physician called Yi Tianqi. Mr. Yi had a famous saying, "When you move closer to aging, your lower parts are the first to show signs of weakening." What does this mean? This means the first sign of aging will start from one's lower burner, which are the liver, the kidney, waist, and legs. So some diabetics will experience weak lower limbs and chilly feet. This type of diabetics is very common, and the accompanying symptoms are frequent urination and a grayish-yellow complexion. These are all signs of inadequate kidney performance. These signs are called deficiency of yang energy in the kidney. When I was doing my field research, I encountered countless of these cases. They controlled their diets and received treatments, but did not restrain their sexual activities. and this had led to a very serious consequence. I shall now cite a clinical case that I encountered. Like so many entrepreneurs here, this person was also an entrepreneur. What industry was he working in? He was working in the tourism industry. He was first diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 30. He displayed classical symptoms of having 2 weak legs. He walked unsteadily with weak floating steps. In Chinese layman's term, there are no roots under one's feet. What about his outward appearance? He had a grayish-yellow complexion, a very weak bladder, and a urine dripping problem. As we all know, constant dripping is, in actual fact, a symptom of prostatitis or an enlarged prostate. Prostatitis or an enlarged prostate is much more common amongst the elderly, over 70 years old. But why did the same symptom appear in the body of a 30-year-old man? In short, this is renal injury caused by overindulgence in sex. After I examined his pulses, I discovered this man's foot pulses were very sluggish. According to the Chinese pulse diagnosis method, the physician will feel for the pulses at the radial artery after the wrist area. He will detect whether the strength is floaty, moderate, or dense at the 3 meridian points of Cun, Guan, and Qi, using the index finger, middle finger, and fourth finger. Qi is a reflexive point of kidneys. It is located after the radius meridian point. If the Qi pulse is very dense, weak, and sluggish, it is an indication that the flow of energy, Qi, of this person's kidneys is not adequate. When I felt for this pulse at the entrepreneur's wrist, I found that the Qi of his kidneys was very insufficient. Moreover, his outer appearance testified to a lack of yang energy in his kidneys. According to Chinese medical theory, this is called the fire is too weak to warm the earth. In diabetic cases, such as these, relying solely on controlling one's diet, taking insulin, and drugs that lower blood sugar will not be sufficient to control the disease. If the diabetes continues to develop, this is likely to lead to a phenomenon called gangrene. What is gangrene? This is when blood circulation to a person's feet is obstructed. After a period of time, this will lead to partial necrosis and finally amputation. This man was 30 years old when he was diagnosed with diabetes. When he came looking for me, he was already 40 years old. He already had this condition for 10 years. I told him, if you want to cure this disease, to control it and stop its progression, you must practice sexual abstinence. According to the teachings of the ancient physicians, an abstinence of at least 1 to 2 years is required in order to preserve the kidneys' qi well. Otherwise, the body will experience serious repercussions. However, this person did not listen to my advice. His 2 reasons for seeking me were mainly to treat his diabetes and impotency. Everybody, please take note. Impotence is, in actual fact, the body's self-protection mechanism when the body lacks kidney qi. We as Chinese doctors advocate for people to follow nature, that is, to use natural health preservation methods. For example, when we enter a cold environment, our body's pores will respond with a self-protection mechanism. What is it? Goosebumps. In actual fact, this is the activation of a body's self-protection method. When goosebumps appear, this means that the body's sweat pores contract to resist the external cold. Thus, this person with 10 years of diabetes, a history of frequent sexual indulgence, and the emergence of impotency. These are signals that his body has given up, urging him to moderate his sexual activities as the body wants to protect itself. This is the body's natural defensive mechanism activating itself. But this man came to me and asked me to help him invigorate his yang qi, masculine energy. Just imagine, when we enter a cold environment, our sweat pores would contract. But this guy requested a doctor to give him a medicine. What kind of medicine? A medicine to dilate his sweat pores. He is totally going against nature, and there is a saying that the one who opposes heaven will perish. The so-called heaven refers to nature. Conforming to heaven, one prospers. Heaven here also refers to the law of nature. If people conform to the law of nature, their body will be healthy. If they go against the law of nature, their health will rapidly decline and eventually lead to death. So when this man came to see me, he was actually going to do something that would oppose heaven and cause himself to perish. Of course I wouldn't permit this. I told him that in order to cure this disease, he had to abstain from sex or else he wouldn't recover. He did not listen to my advice, and instead he quoted a famous saying of his own to me. While alive, one has to thoroughly enjoy himself. Nobody should let a gold goblet face the moon in vain. As many of you entrepreneurs, I'll place emphasis on this next point. There is a common saying, a man will turn bad when he gains money, whereas a woman who turned bad will gain money. The bad in this saying refers to the sexual promiscuity between male and female relationships. Many people these days pursue sexual enjoyment once they become rich, not knowing that they are jumping into a pit of fire by doing so. When I conversed with the entrepreneur about this topic, this was the saying he uttered. He said, "Dr. Peng, it would be harder for you to make me abstain from sex than to kill me, because I will not repeat what he said to me. In short, he strongly opposed to this proposition, so I told him, what you are doing now is against heaven's law, which means that you will be bound by the law of nature, and it will teach you a lesson. I will see you in a year's time." I said directly to him, in your present condition, your feet will become chilly and numb 6 months from now. And if you still do not abstain from sex, then in another 6 months, the blood circulation in your legs will deteriorate, and you will experience necrosis, and the final outcome would be amputation. I left my caution there, and he laughed it off by asking me what sex has to do with diabetes. I said, well then, let reality reveal the truth. A year later, he called me and said that everything I said came true. 3 months after he left my clinic, his already chilling feet became numb and stiff. Everyone knows that these are the early symptoms of the body's yang qi withdrawing. A child's hands and feet are always warm, even when they are out in the very cold winter. In their bare feet, their feet and hands are both very red. Then as people age and their yang qi diminishes, their hands and feet begin to cool, followed by the next stage as numbness and stiffness. What about diabetics? If these symptoms of cold, numb, and still feet emerge, this means that the yang qi has begun to withdraw, and their blood circulation is deteriorating. At this point, this man said he experienced numbness and stiffness after 3 months, and another 6 months later, his condition progressed faster than I expected. As he lost the sensitivity of his feet, he said that although his feet were on the ground, he felt as though they were very far away from the ground, as if there was a thick layer of foam pad beneath his feet. What does this represent? This represents that qi and blood could no longer circulate to his feet, and his nerves has begun to grow numb. He called and told me, "A year since I last saw you, what was my condition? My middle toe and fourth toe. These 2 toes had lost all feelings and had begun to darken." He said he was frightened, and after going to hospital for a checkup, the doctors diagnosed him with diabetic gangrene, and the treatment, ultimately, was amputation. Because he was so scared upon hearing the diagnosis, he called me. I told him over the phone that there are many different causes of gangrene. For instance, some due to qi and blood stasis, and some due to kidney exhaustion, in which case no cure can be found. Because one has previously overexhausted one's body, how should I put it? A year ago, when this entrepreneur experienced impotence, this was his body giving him a warning, saying, "Hey, old one, you must conserve your vitality. Do not deplete your body too much," I told him. "I have already warned you, yet not only did you not listen, but you went on to take some aphrodisiacs, drink the so-called aphrodisiac drink, and cause a further depletion of your yang energy. After the yang energy has been completely drained from the body, according to the ancient sayings, this is called withered bone marrow. Once a human's bone marrow has withered, adverse consequences await him. So when this man called, I told him, this disease is very difficult to treat. Even if the immortals were present on earth, they could not restore your health. A similar case had been documented in the medical records of the famed physician Hua Tuo, about a county chief who died after intercourse with his wife when he was recovering from an illness. Hua Tuo said, even if immortals were on earth, they wouldn't be able to cure this type of disease. I simply quoted his sentence. The final outcome of this entrepreneur's condition was that both his middle and fourth toe were amputated, so the adverse consequences are very serious. This is the first case I would like to talk about.